just gonna jump right in. Tonight isn't going to make everyone feel happy, but I don't care, because if you've never had your identity turned into a commodity, this conversation probably won't make sense to you. And that means you have privilege.
Welcome back to Might Be Manic.
I've been sitting with a question, and the question is not why Black people are so influential. I mean, obviously we've had this conversation, but my question is, why does it seem like everybody wants something from Black people? And I'm not talking about Africans, I'm talking about Black Americans, Judah. And it's not necessarily us as people. They kind of see us as an idea or a blueprint. They want the sound, they want the rhythm, they want the style, they want the hair, they want the confidence, they want the skin, they want the features, they want the body, they want the aesthetic, they want the attitude, they want the language, the authenticity, they want the culture. But they don't always want the responsibility that comes with respecting the people who built it. Black America is one of the greatest cultural powerhouses and exports in the human history. Let's just call it what it is. It is the greatest in human history.
Yeah, boy.
When it comes to culture, we are a worldwide phenomenon and powerhouse, trendsetter, and blueprint. And, let's just sit with that, because how can a group that's only 13 to 14% of this country actually dominate the world when it comes to influence? Everyone wants to be the Black American. They just don't want what comes with being the Black American. So a commodity that makes up a relatively small share of the US population has somehow shaped global music, fashion, dance, sports, comedy, language, beauty, and internet culture in ways that are impossible to ignore. Hip hop isn't just music anymore. Blues isn't just music, R&B isn't just music. Even rock and roll isn't just music. They're global industries. Jazz changed everything. Blues changed everything. Rock and roll was built on Black musical traditions. We built rock and roll. House music, techno, R&B, soul, gospel, trap music, drill music. The playlist of modern culture has Black fingerprints holding it. We're holding it. Let's be real. Then there's language. How many words become internet slang after living with us first? And all of a sudden, Urban Dictionary exists because people want to say it, but they don't know what it means. We have AAVE. How many, hairstyles become cool? Kardashian braids, or white girls wearing bonnets to sleep on silk pillows when we know that's going to slide right off your head. They get worn by people outside our community. For what reason? I do not know. I seen a girl at Walmart, a white girl, playing Blue Magic. And edge control. I was like, holy crap. How many things get renamed after they've already existed for years? Reseasoned, trying to act like it's something original when we all know that it's ours. And with no respect for what it means culturally as well. Sometimes it feels like Black culture doesn't get introduced to the world. It gets rediscovered and then attempted at, reheated, and revamped by someone else in the world. And, somewhere along the way, the people who created it, us, start to slowly dissipate from the origin story. And that's what really gets under my skin. That's not necessarily influence, that's extraction, because there is a difference. There's a difference between saying that inspires me to acting like you came up with it yourself.
I don't even know what that means.
And there's a difference between appreciation and entitlement. There's a difference between being welcomed into a culture or believing that you can monopolize on it, gentrify it, and own it. Another thing, people yearn for the Black approval. Just the question, can I come to the cookout? Does my outfit look good? Does my hair fly? Was that funny? Look at my dance. They want to know if they're accepted by us. If you're in the party, they want you to laugh at their joke. Everybody wants your attention. Why? Why does it matter so much? The validation. What is it about the black approval that carries so much social currency, even when it comes to trends in music? If black people like you as an artist, you're going to be successful, period. That's why they all start out black, appropriating the culture, and then they turn to country or pop, and then, they abandon it completely once they make it. Because if black people don't like your music, you're probably not going to get on in most genres. It's just the way it is. So, if that's true, why do so many of us of the same conversations about black people still revolve around stereotypes, fear, and disrespect? That's the contradiction I'm trying to understand. How can a culture be celebrated while people behind it are so often misunderstood? I don't think it's just about race. I think it's about what happens when culture becomes profitable. Once culture becomes profitable, people start treating it like a resource instead of a relationship, like an outfit. They want the recipe, not the chef. They want the rhythm, not the responsibility. They want the aesthetic, not the history. They want the style, not the struggle. I've never had a friend who's not black that has not said something racist around me, like at least twice, ever. They just don't get it. And it's not just one group of people, it's everyone. Culture is not something you can just consume. It's connected to real people, real lives, real families, real neighborhoods, real stories, real joy, and real pain. I don't need to be agreed with, but I do think we should ask ourselves the uncomfortable question. When people say they love black culture, what do they mean? Are they saying they love the people? Or do they love what the people produce? Do they love being entertained by the people? Because those are not the same thing. And maybe that's the conversation we should have more often. Not because black culture needs permission to exist, because baby, we never did. We freed ourselves. Get real. The question is whether the world is willing to value the influence itself. Because if the answer is no, then maybe we've confused consumption with respect. And those are not the same thing. So, seeing that I live somewhere where it's less than 1% black, I think it's less than 0.5% black here, everyone always tells me, why don't you just date a white guy? And I will not do that, ever in my life. I would never, ever do it in my life, ever. I would never. And so, that's the part that people deliberately pretend not to understand, is the fetishization and the fact that it is racism, but it's racism that still wants access. So fetishization and racism are definitely not opposites.
What?
Somebody being attracted to black people does not automatically mean they respect them. And in my experience, white girls that date all black men, it's just been in my experience. I've never met one that doesn't seem racist. Never in my life. And I think if you're black, if you know, you know. Somebody sleeping with all black people doesn't mean that they're not racist. Somebody loving black bodies does not mean they love black humanity. Because racism does not always say, stay away from me. Sometimes racism says, come here, but only as a version of you that I like. And unfortunately, many of our black men fold to this, and I don't date black men who have dated white girls ever. I won't do it. It's a big sign of insecurity. I don't see how they could do it. I will not date a black man who's ever dated any women who are not black. They want you to be this way for them, be dangerous for them, be dominant for them, or be submissive for them, or be loud, or be thick, be athletic, be aggressive, be, Megan Thee Stallion. Be my fantasy blackness, but do not become complicated, vulnerable, particular. Do not push back, and do not become fully human. And that is fetishization. Fetishization is not simply finding someone beautiful. Attraction notices a person. Fetishization reduces a person to a racial category. So when women say, I only date black men, that is fetishization. Because if you really were dating the person for the person, you would date a certain type of person, not one that looks a certain way only. A body part, an assumed sexual behavior, or stereotype. Researchers studying racial fetishization have found that people on the receiving end commonly describe feeling objectified, boxed into stereotypes, and prevented from forming genuine emotional connections. And that's because the fetishizer is not necessarily engaging with who they are, engaging with your race and what it represents inside of their imagination. And that's exactly where fetishization connects to racism. Racism takes millions of individual human beings and oppresses them into a few supposedly predictable characteristics. And fetishization does the same thing. It just adds sexual desire. Racism says all black people possess certain traits. Fetishization says those alleged traits turn me on. Same stereotype, different reaction. One person sees a stereotype and one feels fear. Another person sees it and feels fascination. A third person might feel both, but none of them are necessarily seeing the actual person standing in front of them underneath the blackness of it. That's the connection. You know, black shouldn't be the first thought, but it should be a plus. And after racism and fetishization begin with refusing individuality. Researchers have described racial fetishization as involving both the idolization and the demonization of racial difference. The person may praise the exact same stereotype that another person uses to justify discrimination. Black men are stereotyped as threatening or animalistic or sexually dominant, and the stereotype can make someone cross the street when they approach. And, it can also make somebody pursue him sexually because they expect this aggressive, superhuman, big dick performance. Those reactions, look different, but they're built from the same lie, the same box. And then black women are stereotyped as being, these hypersexual freaks, big curves, big butt, can cook really well, throw down if she has to, endlessly strong, never broken, confrontational, and always available for consumption. That stereotype can be used to disrespect. Get sexually exploited very easily as well. It can also be packed as a preference by people who approach her expecting a fantasy because they don't need to know her name. They just know what she's supposed to be about based on racism. Research involving black women has explicitly connected their sexual objectification experiences to racism, sexism, slavery-era history, and sexualized cultural imagery. So when somebody says, I've always wanted to try a black girl, try like a seasonal menu. We are not a drug that you heard about at a party. We're not a sexual achievement. And that statement alone does not tell us whether they have a loving preference, meaningful cultural connection, or a collection of stereotypes wearing a trench coat. The question is, what happens after the attraction? Are black people allowed to be individuals? And can the black man be soft, anxious, nerdy, gentle, or uninterested in performing dominance? Can the black woman be quiet, awkward, sexually reserved, emotionally needy, delicate, or unwilling to perform confidence? Do you remain attracted when the black person refuses to act black according to your black image and your black private screenplay that plays in your white head? Fetishization is conditional, and it says, I want you, but only while you remain recognizable in this box as the stereotype that I had planned for you, and that's not acceptance. That's casting, and black people know when we're being cast. We know when somebody is studying us instead of meeting us. We know when the compliment is actually an expectation. We know when someone is attracted to our skin but irritated by our boundaries. We know when they love our confidence until it disagrees with them. We know when the women seem intimidating because she's strong and they don't know if they can handle strong, they want quiet. We know when they love our body but hate your voice. We know when they love our culture but become uncomfortable around too many black people. We know when they want proximity to blackness because it makes them feel interesting, rebellious, desirable, and sexually adventurous, or culturally credible. That's why fetishization is not flattering. Being desired is not automatically a privilege when the desire is built on dehumanization. In a quantitative study, women of color who reported more racial fetishization also reported greater depression, discrimination, and related trauma symptoms and anxiety about their personal identity and their safety. Because being wanted is not comforting when you're unsure whether they want you or access to what they believe your race actually owes them. And this does not stop in bedrooms. The same pattern, happens culturally. The world takes black hair, black music, black bodies, black language, black aesthetics, and detaches it from black people and turns it into a consumable object. And one recent psychological model argues that cultural appropriation can reinforce stigma through racialized objectification, and the group becomes reduced to aesthetics, commodities, and stereotypes, while their autonomy and humanity suddenly disintegrates and disappears. That's fetishization on a cultural global scale. Give us your sound, your style, your language, your body. Give us your approval, but don't ask us to confront anti-blackness for you. Don't ask us to respect your boundaries. Don't ask me to wait. Don't ask us to listen when you say something hurts. Don't make the fantasy inconvenient for them. People want blackness close enough to consume, but not always close enough to challenge them. And sometimes what gets called love is just possession with better public relations. Because racism does not always want black people gone. Sometimes it wants black people available for entertainment, labor, sex, inspiration, emotional support, available to certify that somebody is funny, cool, or attractive, or hey, I'm not racist. Look, I have a black friend. Available but not autonomous. That's why fascination can coexist with hatred. And that's why desire can coexist with contempt. That is why somebody can imitate black people, sleep with them, study them, profit from them, and still not see them as equals. They don't hate everything about us. They hate the parts that they desire belong to people they cannot own. And maybe that's the link nobody wants to admit, is that fetishization is proof that racism has disappeared. Or fetishization is not proof racism has disappeared. It's proof that racism has found a way to desire what it still refuses to humanize. So, at the end of the day, maybe we've confused consumption with respect at times because they're not the same thing. Thank you for listening to this Might Be Manic Morning Coffee Spiral. And, this is where we say the midnight or mid-morning thoughts out loud. And maybe today the thought is this: the most imitated thing in the world might also be the one that's the most misunderstood. Whether you're about to get ready for work, go back to bed, get in the shower, and sing some Adele, I hope you have a great day, and don't forget to spiral cute. I'll see you later, bestie.
Yeah.